today is an alternative to anger. And anger is, we're not talking about anger today, in terms of like really, because our times have important anger. There's some times when things that are so near and dear are violated, and actually an angry response can be totally appropriate. And then in our particular way of seeing things in our denomination, we call that zeal. But we're talking about the anger that's destructive, and I'm sure many of us wrestle with this day in and day out. Like what is the right kind of anger? What's the wrong kind of anger? If we're in the wrong kind of anger, how do we kind of come back and reground ourselves? So that's what I want to talk about. And it's, thinking about this in context of the story we've been looking at, beautiful poetic story, the story of the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah and the salvation of Lot. So if you're not familiar with those stories, they're ancient biblical stories, and we read them very poetically. Like, God would never actually destroy a town, but there are parts of our life, there are sort of paradigms in our life, villages or towns that we have in our head, ways of putting the world together that just don't always work and can actually be incredibly self-destructive, and God's going to pull us out of that. And those things will collapse of their own weight, that evil has within it the seeds of its own destruction. And I think that's really important to remember, that evil has within it the seeds of its own destruction. It's not that we need to destroy that. It's not that God even destroys it. It's just the mechanism. Like, evil cannot continue to perpetuate itself. Eventually it turns back in on itself and collapses in on its own weight. And we've seen that over and over again in world history in very painful ways, granted, but we can clearly see that happening. So what is the alternative to anger? Because something happens, and here I'm thinking relationally, something happens and somebody does something that's very hurtful to us that we know is wrong, and but we don't want to get totally bent out of shape with anger, and we feel like that might be the only way, that anger might be the way to rectify the situation or to get things clear. And I, again, would really urge caution with that, because maybe there's this alternative. Think of, instead of anger, think of clarity. Instead of anger, think of clarity. I'm not angry. I'm not going to be angry. I'm going to be clear. And that place is very different, because if we can have that clarity and allow it to sort of give rise to a certain curiosity about how we'll move forward, boy, that is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful place to be. So what does that clarity give us? What does that clarity allow for us to do? Well, that clarity kind of grounds us in our best selves, the better angels of our nature. And that's where, again, that clarity, if it has a spiritual basis and we have 2 feet on the ground, that clarity can be super important. And it also, and this is really important too, and this one's a little hard to describe, being really clear may be a much better path to unconditional love than anger can be. Anger is very conditional. In other words, there's a condition is being violated. So my mood is going to be determined what you do. So it's either way up or way down, either I'm really happy or really angry. And those kind of relationships, when we're in them and we're in somebody who's very mercurial, I think is the word, when somebody's either way up or way down, it's exhausting. It's exhausting. And it's exhausting when we're that same way, and we're exhausting for other people when we're that way. And it's not a way to draw closer to other people. And maybe what we can do instead is just no, I'm going to try to focus on clarity, because clarity is something so internal, and their reaction can be way up, can be way down. It doesn't matter, because we're being clear. And it gets us out of that loop too of being way up or way down. No, I'm just going to be clear. I'm just going to be clear about what I'm navigating by. It also, friends, allows other people to be in freedom. And I think that's a significant one. So if I'm really clear about where I'm coming from, other people can disagree, but I'm not hooked by it. And they can be angry, they can have their own reaction. And it's where I'm able to say something that sometimes is hard, sometimes isn't, but I'm able to say something and just let it go. They get to have their reaction. They get to experience life the way they get to experience life. I'm not trying to do that. I'm not trying to manipulate them in any way. I'm just simply being clear of trying to reflect what I feel like God is calling me to be, and how God is calling me to be in the world. And when we can do that, what's the end result? Well, much more peace, I've never experienced a time where I got really, really angry, and then right afterwards, like, oh man, I feel so much more at peace now. I don't think that really happens. Maybe if it's an appropriate form of anger down the road, we can realize, yep, that was part of the journey. That wasn't all bad. But I don't know too many people are like, wow, that was just the road to peace. And so much of life is that idea of serenity, is that idea of peacefulness, is that idea of just, taking a breath. And coming from that clarity is so incredibly beautiful, because that's where we really connect with other people. I think about, like, when we're looking in relationships, we're always trying to connect with those we love and those we're trying to be friends with. And it's interesting, things, if you're trying to adhere to surfaces, the first big thing is you want to clean both surfaces so that the surfaces are as clean as possible, because that's how things join together. They join together much better when each surface is clean and clear. And I think there's something to that. Like, if we really want to have close relationships, we can just work on being clear. Don't think of anger as an option. Think of clarity as the option. And I think it'll be, you'll start to see some pretty good shifts out there in your life. So with that, dear friends, let me shift gears. And what we shift gears into here at New Church Live is we shift gears into a little prayer, a little meditation, a little hello to everyone out there on Facebook. And it's just a way for us to sort of come in slowly into the week, still our minds, and remember this about God. God creates a silence into which another voice may speak. And so much of God's voice is the voice of silence. So with that, let us take a big breath and listen to the prayer bell. Be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am. Be still and know that I. Be still and know that. Be still and know. Be still and. Be still. Be. Our Father, who art in the heavens, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, as in heaven, so upon the earth. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we also forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you, bring you peace, and bring you home. Amen. All right, dear friends, let's give a little cheery hello to those who've joined us on Facebook. See how everybody is doing. All right, let's just get. Sorry, folks, like trying to scroll through some stuff here. All right. I wish I was a little faster afoot here, but I am not. My apologies again. All right, there we go. All right, Larry, good morning to you, buddy, and great to see you on Sunday. Sherry, good morning to you, and I hope you're doing well. Marcus, always great to see you joining us, my friend. And yeah, thank you for your part, Marcus, in a wonderful, wonderful weekend as we celebrated Angela as she is moving on to new employment, which is wonderful. Martha, and good morning to you, Martha. I hope you're doing well. So, friends, wishing you a week where we can choose, when we're given the choice between clarity and anger, that we choose the clarity and let go of the anger. Wishing you all a wonderful week ahead. God bless, and on behalf of New Church Live, we look